Hello, FOSDEM. Today we're going to talk about Contour, the Kubernetes Ingress controller. My name is Orlin Vasilev. And who am I and why I'm here to talk about Contour? So my friends call me Orlix. I have 2 kids. I'm CNCF ambassador for the region. I'm sysadmin. I've been developer, DevOps, SRE, even MLO. I'm also can say it about myself that I'm DIY person, which means I love creating physical stuff in the real world and also creating stuff in the IT. And I also happen to be the community manager for Contour, currently employed by VMware. And that's the reason why I think one of the right persons to talk to you about our project and our community, and why I think it's a great idea if you're going to join us. So without further ado, that's what we're going to cover today. Contour 101, very short introduction to Contour, some key features, some architectural diagrams, and why I think it's great if you bet your usage on Contour. Then we're going to do some short demo with some of the key features that I'm going to show you. And then we're going to talk about community. By community, I mean the team. I mean why it's great if you want to join us, how you can join us, and how we can help you out. So, Contour 101, the Kubernetes high-performance ingress controller, right? But why and how? Created back in 2017 by the Hep2 folks. At the time, they told that ingress is not enough, so they created a CRD for this one. And there's a very nice note from Dave, one of the creators back then, why they need something else. So Contour is open source, right? It's in his essence, it's a controller, which means it's not doing the actual networking, but it's rather the controlling the Envoy, and we use Envoy as the data plane for the traffic. So with the Envoy and Contour, we support dynamic configuration updates, which means we don't need to restart anything or stuff like this. And in essence, Contour was designed to accommodate multi-team, multi-tenancy. So everything is around multi-tenancy in general. So that's the overall architecture. It's very simplified, of course, but you have the very simple and known setup, internet, load balancer, and then you have ingress. Just to level up, what ingress is the mechanism how you get outside traffic of your cluster hitting some service which is behind the load balancer inside your cluster. So in that case, that layer is the Contour and Envoy. So someone wants to make a request, let's say project.contour.io. That request goes to the load balancer. The load balancer then transfers that to the Envoy proxy. Then the Envoy proxy routes that traffic to the appropriate namespace, service, and then pod. But how the Envoy knows where to send it, that's the part where the ingress controller knows. So the ingress controller is watching the kube API for new ingress definitions or HTTP proxy definitions and reconfigures Envoy, so Envoy knows how to route the traffic. With that, some of the key features. One of the great things that you can do is when you define an HTTP proxy, which I'm going to talk about in a second, is the CRD that Contour provides, limits the way how you can specify the virtual host, so the host name that you're going to serve. And then you can delegate specific parts of that host name to specific HTTP proxies in different namespaces or the same namespace. So you can also, all that is done validating on creation. So you don't have to worry that if you create something bad, it will crash. It will not just allow you to create it, and it will be giving you a status that is not valid. So you're safe from this point. So ingress versus the Contour CRD HTTP proxy. So on the left-hand side, you have the ingress, which is a very simple one. In terms of definition right now, you have one host, you have one service, a port, and just one path. That's it. On the right side, you have the Contour HTTP proxy. It's the same thing, pretty much, looks like, right? A few lines less, but it gives you more functions if you extend that and if you delegate some stuff. So, for example, you specify the virtual host and the FQDN, and when you specify that once, no one else in the cluster can use the same FQDN. If you can specify in the conditions, you can specify more paths, and you can delegate those paths to another HTTP proxy definitions in the same namespace or across namespaces. And you'll be sure that only the one specified in your root HTTP proxy that we can see right now, those can use those paths. So I'm going to demonstrate that in a bit. So what hooked me up the most from when I first saw the project and I started playing with it was this one. You can specify two services in the same HTTP proxy, and you can put weights on them, which sounds okay, but it's great because you can send, like in this case, in this scenario, is 80% of your traffic goes to version 1 and 20% goes to service version 2, which means you can do canary deployments, or you can switch them like 0 to 100. Those are not percents, but like weights. So you can do 0 and 100. So you can even do blue-green deployment. So why Contour? All that I was just saying, the dynamic reconfiguration, the custom HTTP proxy that can give you more functionality. Also, from version 120, we support the gateway API, but I think I'm going to talk about more on this one on the next FOSDEM in 2023. And the community and the community support that you can get. And of course, the Contour is supported by CNCF. Contour is currently in incubation in CNCF and also is backed up by a few companies. So where Contour actually is in use, maybe the biggest one on this picture is the Knative. So the folks from Knative decided that Contour will be there to go way to accept traffic. There are a few more, like the Flighty, the locomotives from Kinfolk, and of course the Towns of Community Edition from VMware. There are many more. Slide, I don't want to be overcrowded with stuff. So about the demo, we're going to install Contour. I'm going to show you some delegation of the paths that I was discussing previously, and then we're going to do a simple blue-green combined with canary deployment just to show what we can do with few commands. So that's very simplified demo setup. I just want to show what we're going to do and what we try to achieve in the demo. So we're going to hit local.project.io, projectcontour.io. That's a record which points to your local host. You can use it for all demo and test purposes. And then we're going to hit Envoy on our kind cluster. And then we're going to hit the slash, which will be our main web page. And then we're going to define more HTTP proxies. One will be for the FOSDEM, so /FOSDEM, which will hit a service web v1. And then we're going to play with the canary deployment to see how we can migrate from v1 to v2 deployment of the same web server. Let's jump to the console so we can do the demo. So I turn. Okay, so our demo will consist of the following. We're going to deploy a kind cluster, which I've already done to save time. And then we're going to deploy a series of YAML files, which will change the infrastructure one step at a time, and we can follow up. So with this one, I've also created a README with all the steps, so you can reproduce that if you want on your own. So if we go to directory, and so first thing first, that's the YAML definition for our kind cluster. We have two nodes. one control plane and one worker. For the worker, we're gonna suppose port 80 and 443 because we're gonna hit through the local.projectcontroller.io. We're gonna hit our local host right away. So we're gonna hit Envoy straight, no load balancer. That's the README. If you want to follow up, it's in GitHub as well. So as a first step, I'm going to copy that just in case. As a first step, I'm going to show you a few things. I have few aliases. So K is kube control or kubectl. LP is list pods, so kubectl get pods. And LPA is list all the pods in all namespaces. So with that said, the first thing I'm gonna check if everything is working fine. Yeah, all pods everywhere are running as expected. Then the next step will be to deploy the controller. So we apply the easiest way through YAML right away from the quick start, and that you create everything that you need: the namespace for controller, the service accounts, everything, the role bindings, the daemon sets. As you can see, the controller and Envoy are deployed differently. We deploy controller as deployment, and Envoy is deployed as daemon set on each worker node. But in our case, we have one worker, so one Envoy and at least two controllers. So let's list all pods, and yeah, so we have the controller running and Envoy is initializing. So if we give it a few seconds, it will be ready. So with this one, let's jump to our first part of the demo. So the main. We have the main YAML, which will create the main namespace. We'll deploy a very simple app, which will be a web server, which will go on just print very simple text, FOSDEM 2022, and then it will create this service, which will expose that pod, but that will not be enough to be able to access anything. So let's see why. So we go here and everything is running. So we're gonna do kubectl apply -f 01 main. Okay, so that created the namespace main, the deployment main web, and the service. So I'm gonna split my screen like this. And if we do curl -s local.projectcontour.io, nothing, right? Because we have a service, but we don't have ingress or HTTP proxy to be able to Envoy to route the traffic to the appropriate service and pod. So if we go back to the VS Code, we're gonna open the second one, which is actually creating our HTTP proxy. We call that, for example, root, because that holds the fully qualified domain name for what we're gonna expose. And then the service, in this case, is webmain and port 80. Nothing special, very simple one. So let's apply this one. kubectl apply -f 02. So we have our first HTTP proxy created in the main namespace. So if we do kubectl get HTTP proxy, nothing in the default namespace, but if we do in O, we can see in the namespace main, we have the root HTTP proxy, hosts the fqdn local.projectcontour.io. It's valid, which is good, which means we are not violating any others. And that's it. So if we go over here and if we do curl, surprise, that's working. Main page FOSDEM 2022. All right. So with this one, we've deployed our first web page, the main web page, and the HTTP proxy, which hosts the host name. the fully qualified domain name. And let's see what we have next. So as a next step, we're gonna extend that. So we wanna have like for example, a different team who works in the same fully qualified domain name, so local.projectcontour.io, but we want to give them another set of subspace to deploy their app. So we're gonna hit /FOSDEM and see what we have there. So for that, we're gonna create a namespace FOSDEM. Again, deployment, a very simple web server, thanks to Steve Sloka, one of the maintainers of Contour, who wrote this one for demo purposes. And that web server is going to print just v1 FOSDEM 2022. What else we have in that YAML file? We have the service, and that's it. So if we go back to the console, cube apply 03 FOSDEM. Okay, so namespace created, deployment created. Let's switch to FOSDEM, for example, and see. Okay, that's running. So if we do FOSDEM, nothing, not found, which means something's wrong. And what can be wrong? We don't have ingress or any HTTP proxy to route the traffic to our pod. So with that, we're gonna deploy our next YAML file, which is we take our root HTTP proxy and we define, in our case, it's called includes, a sub portion of the URL that we're gonna hit. That's right after the domain name /FOSDEM, and we're gonna delegate that to HTTP proxy, which is called FOSDEM, this one, and you can find it in the namespace FOSDEM. The rest stays the same. And then the second part is we are going to not only update the main or the root HTTP proxy, we're going to create in the FOSDEM namespace another HTTP proxy, which we're going to use to expose the web v1 application. So let's go back and cube apply -f 04. And that, as you can see, we reconfigured the root HTTP proxy in the main namespace, and we created a new HTTP proxy in the FOSDEM namespace. So let's see what we have. So namespace FOSDEM, name FOSDEM, no FQDN because it's a subpath of the main FQDN. It's valid. So if we go over here and if we hit this one, nice, we have v1 FOSDEM. So if we do while, I'm gonna do like this and FOSDEM. So for the demos from now on, I wanna do like a regular curls to our endpoint, and we have always v1, right? So we have deployed the main web page and now the v1 under FOSDEM. So let's deploy v2, which is in the same namespace. We're going to deploy web v2. The same web server is going to just print different string. It will be v2 FOSDEM 2020 2, and then the service, and that's it. So we're going to apply 05. Okay, so we applied this one, all good, but we don't have the HTTP proxy is still not allowing us to access the v2 version. So next step is to add what really love about Contour is to add the second service into the HTTP proxy, which later on will allow us to access the second version. So let's say the new version of our web server. So we're going to apply this one, which will add the second service to our HTTP proxy. So if we just forsake, we're going to proxy FOSDEM, and we can see only one service right now. So cube apply -f
06. We can see only the FOSDEM HTTP proxy is reconfigured. So if we list this one, now we can see we have them both, right? V1 and V2, but the weights are 100 on the V1 and 0 on the V2, which means all the traffic goes to V1. So let's start deploying that and exposing that to the world. So we're going to apply the next one, which will be 9010, which if we apply that one, we will see on the bottom every now and then V2. Let's apply this one. Okay, here it goes, V2 over there. And if we wait a little bit longer, V2, V1, and then V2. So approximately 10% goes to V2, 90% goes to V1. If we continue like this, and that's like that's 50-50, and you can see V2 appears more often, then we can apply 1090, which will be primarily V2 and every now and then V1. Sorry. Yeah, more V2s and less V1s. And then we can do total cut off of V1 and we have only V2. And let's say we're happy with this one and we delete everything, the old version and everything, which is good. But there are situations where you need to roll back. So keep apply. Of course, you can do this in a different way as well, but just for the sake of showing the HTTP proxy, we have the rollback, which is, if we go over here, the same HTTP proxy, but everything goes back to 100% on V1. Of course, you can do this like just delete this one and leave only V1, but that was just for showing you what HTTP proxy is capable of and how you can utilize it in your environment. Okay, community, the exciting part for me and my time to convince you to join us. So with that said, some stats. We have more than 3,000 stars in GitHub, 300 forks, a lot of commits and contributors, 6 core maintainers, and more than 1,000 people joining us on the Slack channel and on our mailing list. All these numbers means we've done a lot of job and we really enjoy working with the project and within the project. So if you want to join us, that leads to my next slide. It's our contributor and maintainers map. So core maintainers, Australia, US, and Sweden, and contributors around the globe. What I really want to achieve is to make that map even more colorful, which means I want to see more maintainers from different companies and different countries, which will bring your personal touch to the project and also will do a better governance of the project. So you can steer the project into your needs and your way of thinking how things should be done, which is about open source in general. So adapters. Fortunate enough or unfortunate enough, our main adapters are big companies which are not happy to disclose that they are using us. So I have this happy face on this slide, and that's a question and ask for you. If you use us, please approach us. We need your opinion, open opinion, how you use us, how you use the project, how you can contribute. I can connect you with the right people from the project to help you out with some specific questions that you have. So if you use the project, just reach out. I would love to hear your use case, and we can discuss furthermore how we can improve for your usage and in general the community itself. So community, webpage, projectcontour.io, GitHub Project Contour. We have a Slack channel into the Kubernetes Slack. where you can ask all the questions that you may have about deployment, troubleshooting, community meetings, you name it, everything. Please follow our Twitter. I try to keep that Twitter updating the community with the latest releases or patches or everything that will pop up along the way. We do community meetings and office hours. Our community meetings are alternating between Asia Pacific time and the US time. So in wherever part of the world you are, you'll find a slot to join the community meetings and office hours and ask your questions or just listen or participate in the way how you see visible. You can join our mailing list, which will give you insight of all the releases, all the discussions around the project, which are not made in Slack or in GitHub. So really join us. We have a bunch of good first issues in GitHub. You can find it, that's a link there. So you can find them, you can work on them if you just starting learning Go, or you feel more comfortable Go and you want to touch something bigger than your hobby project. Contour is very welcoming, and you can find always some stuff that you can work on. Also, we have a technical working group for technical documentation, where it's not necessarily you to be a developer or any technical person. You can write technical documentation if you enjoy that. It's a perfect way to start your journey in CNCF and in the project. You have my full support and the team full support on joining us. We can help you set you up your GitHub account if you don't have any, up to the point where you can commit your first PR. So subscribe to the mailing list, and you can check out our contributing documentation, where you can see all the ways how you contribute. Also, I encourage you to check our governance doc, which explains all the level of maintainership, how you can participate in the community and the project itself. With that, get in touch. That's my Twitter. You can find me as Oryx on Slack, on CNCF space and Kubernetes space, and you can find me in GitHub. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the demo, and I'm ready for questions in the Q&A section, which is coming up.